Hi there, my name is Liam Cullen and I'm from Sofico's Product and Innovation team. Today I want to share with you Miles eDocuments, but also much more. I'm pleased to be showing this. I'm not a sales guy, I'm an IT guy, and I genuinely get a kick out of helping our customers use systems to eliminate inefficiencies and cost, and this is the perfect example. So what I'm going to show you is close to my heart. Miles eDocs isn't just about electronic signatures. That's an important element, sure, but it's not the key one. The key message for you is in fact automation. So sure, capturing signatures, but just as importantly, seamlessly interacting with your end users, customers, suppliers, drivers, employers, etc., who may not even realize they're end users. Capturing information from them into your operation and automating what happens next in the business. Long story short, this goes beyond the simple act of turning a piece of paper into a digital format. Every single year around the world, Miles processes over 11 million documents. I wonder how many of them belong to your operation. They get sent as email attachments. They get printed. They might get written on, signed, scanned, emailed again, and often they result in data entry back into the system. This is a typical document flow which we see, and I'd be willing to bet that something like this probably exists in your operation. Amongst other things, it's not efficient. It's not a productive use of your resources, and it's not a very modern way of conducting transactions. Miles eDocs changes this picture because the document is no longer the end product or a byproduct of your business process. It talks back. You share your document via a live link in an email with optional two-factor authentication. No more file attachments or logins to a portal. Each recipient can access the document anywhere on any device. They update the necessary information, they add a signature where it's appropriate, and they submit. It's paperless, seamless, and it's easy. Once submitted, their information updates directly into Miles with next steps automatically processed. You get faster approvals. It's a better user experience, and end-to-end, it's simply quicker and easier, with less reliance on manual steps. It's also the kind of modern, digital way of transacting which people expect these days when dealing with an enterprise. You capture information instantly, and this is a game changer because it's likely to replace entire business processes. Some things you currently have to do in your operation may simply no longer be required. It's more secure. You're no longer relying on emails or attachments or printouts or data entry. It drives automation. Previously, so much of your attention was focused on the logistics of the document flow, how to get it to your customer or supplier, how to get their feedback, how to get that back into the system. But now that messiness is gone. Now you focus on what happens before and after the document piece. All of this translates into improved productivity and better allocation of your resources to more valuable work, which is exactly what systems are meant to offer you. And this is not restricted to specific documents. It's intended for just about any process in your business. Miles eDocs doesn't actually know or care about the type of document or its business context. So you can add more documents without any new development or involvement from Sofico. In the grand Sofico tradition, it's configurable. Once you know how, you're independent. But best of all, it doesn't take a huge implementation effort to make it happen. Setup is quite simple, and you might choose to tackle this progressively. Start with one type of document, start with one customer, and roll it out incrementally. The benefits will be felt immediately. So let's see it in action. I'm going to demonstrate two kinds of documents your organization is likely to have. A typical PDF document, which might be a quote, an application, a vehicle order, an incident, a payment, etc. This represents one thing in your business. This kind of document may or may not involve a signature. Not all of them do. and secondly, what I'd call a list-based document, which is more like an Excel table. A list of repeating lines representing multiple objects in your business, not just one. The examples being a list of vehicles on order, a list of vehicles for sale, etc. Miles eDocs is intended to handle both sorts of document. Firstly, let's look at a typical PDF document. These are the most common and probably what you have in mind when you think of eDocuments. In this case, I have chosen a quote. This document will include both a signature and also a series of fields which we want to collect from the document recipient. This is me acting as a back office resource or as Miles itself. We generate the document from Miles just as you would now, using your reporting engine of choice, Jasper, Crystal, SSRS, etc. But instead of sending it via email, we send it directly to Miles eDocs via Secure API. And Miles tells eDocs who the recipient should be. I can see in the document history that the status of this document is signing pending. So let's switch to the document recipient's email inbox. This is now from the perspective of a customer or a driver receiving that quote. Instead of getting a PDF attachment, they get a link in an email. The contents of this email are configurable in Miles, so the details are personalised and white-labelled for your organisation. The link will have an expiry. It could last for minutes or it could last for weeks. That's controlled by you. When I click on the link, they're taken to the document online. Now, you may have chosen to configure SMS two-factor authentication for this document, meaning that just to access it, they have to pass two-factor authentication using an SMS code. Again, it's configurable, so it's up to you. In this case, we've set up a single-page document. And of course, this page will be white labelled. You'll note that they can't proceed to sign because there are mandatory fields which have to be completed first, so they have to go to update them as requested by selecting this button. They're given a pop-up dialog to enter information. There are various types of fields possible. Boolean yes/no fields. Dates with date pickers. Miles enumerations from a drop-down list. Free-form text fields. And some other types such as numbers. And we have plans for a few more on our roadmap because there are some very cool use cases we're keen to try out. Once they save their changes, they can see those edits reflected directly in the document. Now, because all mandatory fields are complete, they can now go ahead and sign this document. But first I want to say a couple of things. If it's an e-form only document, because not all documents have signatures, they can complete the process immediately and send it back to Miles, transaction over. Instead of saying sign document, this will say complete. Because this document includes an e-signature, they now can choose to proceed to sign or not. Not all documents get past this point. Of course, they could choose to do nothing and leave the document as it is. They can come back to it later and their edits will still be there. As long as the link has not expired, they can return. But let's go ahead and sign, shall we? By default, they are presented with a consent form, a consent to sign electronically. This is optional. You may choose to turn this off entirely. They will have one last chance to look at the document and see where it must be signed. And then they can go ahead and sign. This can be done in a number of ways. Perhaps you prefer an instant click to sign. But personally, I like the tactile experience of signing something. Of course, they could do this on a computer or a mobile device, using their finger or a stylus. This document recipient's part in the transaction is finished. Once they're done, a couple of things happen. If this is the last recipient, then this transaction will have already returned to Miles. If there are multiple signers, however, then at this point, the next signer in the list will have received their email with their link to the document. only the first recipient can edit the document. This is because you cannot alter a document which has been signed, because this invalidates the e-signature, which is certified by a certificate authority. All document recipients will actually get a copy of the finished product emailed to them regardless at the very end of processing. So if they check their email inbox, they will see a copy of the completed document for their records. Here I can see in my inbox that I've received my copy of that finished document. Of course, as well as document parties getting a copy, so too does Miles. eDocs sends back to Miles the final PDF document with any edits which were made and any signatures embedded within it, so it's automatically stored. If I now check the document history, I can see that the status has changed to signed. But that's not the end of it. Let's refresh that document. It also sends back those additional fields separate to the document so that these update Miles. And it will trigger a workflow to do something else in Miles. Perhaps a quote acceptance might lead to a contract being initiated automatically, or a vehicle purchase order acknowledgement might trigger a fuel card process, or something like that. Whatever you decide to configure. The important thing to note is that all of this has happened without human intervention. Naturally, there are variations on this flow. Documents which don't have signatures, documents which don't have editable fields at all, and so on. But the flow and the look and feel are largely consistent with what you've seen. Remember, Miles eDocs does not know or care what that document was. So I showed you a quote sent to a customer, but it might just as easily have been a vehicle order sent to a supplier, a delivery document sent to a driver, an incident document sent to a repairer, a payment sent to an approver, and so on. As I said before, adding more types of documents does not require eDocs development or Sofico involvement. You simply configure more documents in Miles and start sending them. Now I want to quickly show you the other type of document you're likely to want to process because it has a slightly different look and feel, and you may have ideas for how you want to make this work for you. List-based documents are, as I said, more like an Excel table than a PDF. They are a list of many objects which you might want to process together. A list of vehicles on order, which you send to your dealers to update their delivery information, and you can collect all of that delivery information in bulk. A list of vehicles for sale, a sales list you broadcast to prospective buyers who can bid on vehicles, and you collect all of those bids and decide on the sale. As before, the email you send is configurable, but in this case, the document which opens up is really just an extensible list, not a fixed PDF. So it could be quite short or it could be quite long. You will have specified which fields in the list are read-only, which are editable, and what their data types are. Just as before, the recipient updates the various fields and then submits back to Miles. It's really just a table to complete, but instead of having to log onto a portal, it's quick and easy to access and submit to Miles. Of course, unlike PDFs, list-based documents are a little more specific in that when you hit submit, we do need to know what to do and how to send it back to Miles. So depending on your use case, there might be specific processing you want developed and performed. So there, in a nutshell, you have the basics of both types of documents managed by eDocs. Remember what I said at the start about this not really being about signatures or documents as such, but about automation. Well, one overarching benefit is that this opens up countless other possibilities for your organisation. So we can think of this as simply an electronic document and nothing more, digitising something which is otherwise paper-based. But a better way to envisage this is that it provides a GUI to people who don't have a GUI. So right now, you have partners out there with whom you currently transact, but who don't need system access. They could be external people, or they could be internal people. So don't just think of it as a document. It's an interface for end users of your system who don't even know that they're end users. never heard of Miles, don't have access to a web portal or the mobile app, but they can still transact with you and they can still interact directly with your system. And this gives you options for automation. The way I see it, you have 3 types of processes in your operation to be mindful of. The known candidates for automation, like quotes, orders, and etc., and many other known documents as well. You know them, there are lots of them. You already have a list of them in mind for this functionality. All good candidates for a digital flow. But then there are the lesser known candidates for automation. Things which you already do in your daily work, but not with a document, and now you can. An example of this might be an approval, either an internal approval of a payment or an external fleet manager approval or an employer approval or something like that, where a person who doesn't ever need to log into Miles might need to interact with the system. And lastly, there are the things the organisation is maybe not currently doing at all, which you now could. For example, sending each driver a survey after they've had a repair done. Previously, this might have been hard to do, have limited completion rates, and therefore not much benefit to you. But now, it's easy to do. It's more likely to be completed online, and the information is automatically captured. So a new and very valuable flow is possible. So, it's much more than just a document being sent to someone to fill in. Think of it as a GUI you're putting in front of an end user and they're talking directly with your system. Your takeaway, challenge, from today's session is to think about all of your touch points, places where you interact with other parties and you obtain either their approval and acknowledgement or you capture more information which could be fed directly into your operation. Quotes, contracts, vehicle orders, delivery information, contract amendments, insurance renewals, accidents, damages, claims, vehicle condition declarations, repair and maintenance work orders, work authorisations, fines, payments, end of contract intentions, purchase bids, tax declarations, acknowledgements of receipt. I wonder what others you may have, or you could have. Remember, 11 million documents every year. Not all of these touch points need a web portal or a mobile application. Maybe all they need is Miles eDocs. These are implications for you to think about and to discuss internally, because it might mean you decide to reimagine a business process, not just reimagine the design of a PDF. Miles eDocs is a SaaS solution. It's intended to be managed by Sofico in the cloud, so there's no software to be installed by you, and in fact from release 2020.2, your Miles is already capable of transacting with eDocs. But remember, this is intended to be not an additional cost to you, but a cost savings. Aside from the improved user experience and the increased security, taking that messiness out of the document transaction flow, just imagine what you can do with the time and the resources which you will be freeing up by enabling this automation. We've already watched Miles eDocs in action for over a year now, and it has been an empowering force for business improvement for our customers. It drives efficiency, improves productivity, and it digitizes and automates very manual flows. This year, let's make it a force for transformation for your business. This year, let's put Miles eDocs to work for you. Thanks for your attention. Now I would like to invite everyone to the Networking Lounge, where you will have the opportunity to ask some questions about Miles eDocs through a video chat. I'll see you in a few moments.